Welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And this is Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder. And today's episode is brought to you by Kindred Bravely. Their ultra-absorbent reusable nursing pads are up to 8 times more absorbent than the leading washable brands and more environmentally friendly than disposable nursing pads, and they're brand new. And today's episode is also brought to you by Fairhaven Health. If you love lactation tea but hate the dirty taste, Nursing Time Tea is for you. We'll hear more from our sponsors later, but I want to say that the sponsors make this podcast possible. And please head to badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com and check out our sponsor page if you need anything. And if you're looking for any gifts this holiday season, please check them out there. And see if you can give any of our sponsors any business. And while you're there, scroll down and enter your email address and get the episode sent right to your inbox. Super easy. And now I think Dianne has our review of the week.
I do. It's a little bit long, but it goes in line with what we're going to be talking about today. So that's why one of the reasons why I chose it. This comes from Jenny M. This podcast should be mandatory listening for anyone who is breastfeeding or planning to breastfeed. I found your podcast last summer when I was on maternity leave with my daughter and immediately devoured every past episode while keeping up with your weekly episodes. Anytime I sat down to nurse my daughter, I'd turn on your podcast and feel encouraged and empowered to work through any issues. And trust me, there were issues. Seriously, I could write a really unappealing novel about everything we've struggled with. But each time we encountered something new, from poor latch and milk transfer to weight gain issues to sleep concerns, there's an episode available to help me get through it. This is my second breastfeeding journey and has been drastically different than when I nursed my son. As a first-time mom with my son, I was so afraid to bed share with him that I avoided it entirely, often to the detriment of my mental sanity. This time around with my daughter, I knew from your podcast that this was not as scary as I thought it was, and I felt empowered to safely bed share with her when she would quite literally only sleep with me and with my boob in her mouth. At 14 months, we are still nursing, though at this point it's only once a day right before bed. She falls asleep so quickly, thank you, boobs, that I'm not even sure how much milk she gets anymore. But thanks to you ladies, I know that breastfeeding is so much more than milk. It is time that I get to sit quietly with my daughter. She gets the comfort of falling asleep in her mommy's arms, and I get some peaceful snuggles, which are hard to come by when you also have a 4-year-old wild man running around. Thank you for continuing to put out positive, encouraging, empowering, and evidence-based podcasts. Yes. So congratulations to you for making it through all the struggles. And thank you so much for the review. She put that on iTunes, and that really helps us when they're on iTunes, but we love getting the emails and everything from you guys too. So, definitely keep sharing with us. And like I said, that's in line with what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about safe co-sleeping. So I share a very similar story to the review that we just heard, because I had Jack and we had the whole nursery and all of that. And I brought him to like one of his, he was like a couple days old, when you go back to the doctor after like a couple days. And I remember the guy was just like he wasn't my doctor. He was just like a random guy. And he was just like, he was a doctor, but he was not.
I was like, was he in the waiting room? Like, where?
Just some guy started giving me advice, although that happens all the time.
It does, yeah.
I've gotten lots and lots of like, don't share a bed with your baby, like advice from my dad's golfing buddies.
Oh my God.
From like, seriously, like they don't even, like some of them don't have kids. I'm like, okay, this is just out of hand. But anyway, this doctor was like, never put your baby in your bed. Like he said, it was like, it was just like, it was
were like the gray clouds around his head, and
the
like
thunder started lightning, and he and I was like, okay, so oh my God, I won't. I didn't ask why or like how I could read more about it or anything. I didn't know, so I just didn't, and it was like like she said, it was like at the expense of your sanity, because I was like exhausted and doing everything that I could to avoid laying down with him, which included, and this is an important piece of it too, which is that I ended up like going to the couch or to the rocking chair or whatever, and getting myself into situations that truly are not safe. And so that's why it's important even if you think that you're one of the things I was reading here, I was reading a whole bunch of different things yesterday, and all the links are in the show notes. But one of the two that I was really scouring through, and then I'm going to talk about, or that we're going to like really go through in detail more, is James McKenna, of course, because you hear us talk about him all the time.
Yeah.
And then the La Leche League has the Safe Sleep 7, and these little 7 tips that you can use, which of course are very similar. But one of the things that I was reading was, okay, I can't exactly remember what I was going to say, but let's get started and it will certainly come up in the conversation. So when we're talking about safe sleep, James McKenna talks about how safe sleep, like what does a safe sleep environment mean? What does that even mean? Well, he says we got to go, let's go. It's a whole series of things. So let's go back to pregnancy. We got to go all the way back to pregnancy. And this safe sleep starts with a healthy gestation, full-term baby, and a pregnancy that was free of smoking.
Mm.
So that's important for being able to arouse from sleep. And smoking can interfere with that. And so we got to go all the way back to pregnancy. And so that's where it starts. And then he goes into talking about the second biggest thing is breastfeeding. And breastfeeding is something that is, first of all, he says, is significantly helps protect infants from death, including death from SIDS and from secondary disease and congenital conditions. So we talk a lot about SIDS related to co-sleeping, and this is not really it's not the same conversation. A conversation about SIDS is completely different from co-sleeping because babies die of SIDS. It sucks. They do. They die in cribs, and they die in completely safe, free of risk adult beds. It happens very rarely, but it happens. And we're going to actually have Tracy Castles. Remember her from Evolutionary Parenting? We had her on. She was talking about nighttime sleep, and we're going to have her on again in February, where she's going to talk to us about SIDS and kind of safe bed sharing. And so we won't get into the whole SIDS conversation, but that it is a different conversation. And sleeping near your baby and being close to your baby is a protective factor. And breastfeeding is a protective factor.
Right.
So breastfeeding is very important as well for sharing a bed with your baby. And we talk about co-sleeping and bed sharing kind of interchangeably, and that's incorrect because co-sleeping is like an umbrella term, and bed sharing is specifically sharing a bed with your baby. So there's all different kinds, and that's the other thing that I love about this conversation too, is because there's all kinds of ways to co-sleep. Like if you're not comfortable sharing a bed with your baby, okay, you can have a crib in the room. You can have a crib sidecard to the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go on YouTube, and we did this too in my house. We had a crib sidecar to our bed, and you can go on YouTube and you can see how to actually do that with like bungee cords underneath so that it doesn't move and create spaces, which is another thing that we'll get into when we're talking about safe co-sleeping. And then there's, co-sleepers that are designed specifically for that. So there's all different kinds of ways to co-sleep. And check out the link in the show notes to a blog post that I did based on like a bunch of people submitting photos of their sleep environments, because people get so creative on ways to share sleep spaces with their babies. And we went through a million different things. We went through like the crib sidecar, and then we put all the mattresses on the floor, and then we got rid of the crib mattress, and then we got another mattress, and then we had a bassinet next to the bed when we had Exley, and then we had both of them in the bed with me in between them because that's the safety thing too. And so we've been through like a million different ways. But that's the cool thing, is that you're not going to go on these, we're not going to tell you like how to set up your room. We're going to tell you what are safe things that you can do that are guidelines. And then you get to create the space that works for you. It's very fun if you let yourself have fun. So, and we talk about too with the just getting in line with the, here's the kind of rundown of the bed. So your bed is going to be free of stuffed animals. It's going to be free of extra pillows. You know, a lot of like right now we have like 8 pillows in the bed. My kids are older, so it doesn't matter. But if I had a baby, we'd be clearing out all of the pillows that we weren't using for our head. Um, you would not be putting your baby on a pillow. You're going to keep your baby breastfeeding at the breast. Um, clear the bed of, you know, soft, heavy, fluffy, over fluffy bedding. You're just going to have a blanket that's just over you. And, you know, the bottom part of your baby, if it's cold. Sometimes we didn't even use a blanket, but you can use a blanket safely and keeping it down, you know, away from their head. Sheepskins, super fluffy stuff like that. Beanbag mattresses are no. Water beds. I don't even people
Oh
have
my
water beds
god.
anymore. I know.
It's not the 70s.
What? What? My friend had a water bed when I was a kid, and I would sleep over. It was horrible
Ugh.
because we would both be sleeping in the bed, and it's like you're like at sea.
I
And every time
know.
she moved, it was just like I couldn't sleep. It was terrible.
Ugh.
Anyway, I had a water bed, but it was like the tube kind, so it wasn't as like rocky. But anyway, water beds. Do not bed share with a water bed. Don't get a water bed. But if and here's another thing. No matter what you're doing, you are going to be eliminating gaps. So gaps between bed frames, from between the walls, between, you know, the any kind of setup in between mattresses, if you have mattresses pushed together. And this is where the La Leche League has the Safe Sleep 7, and they have a safe surface checklist, and it's great. So it's avoid sofas and recliners, like we talked about. Mattresses that are like sagging, or like weird mattresses made out of material that doesn't allow you to, like, you know, that creates huge holes in it,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, that would just keep everybody kind of falling into each other. A firm mattress is what you need. Spaces between like the headboards, any side rails, anything that you're loose. That's another thing that we did is for a while is we got one of those like side rails, and I would sleep before we put the mattresses on the floor, which I think was just like the ultimate in sharing the sleep space with my little kids, was putting the mattress on the floor. It was so much easier. But before we put them on the floor, we had one of those little side rail things, and that worked great too. And then, yeah, so you can actually, if you put your space together, and the other thing is you can pull, if you have spaces between the wall and the mattresses, what you can do is actually pull the mattress away from the wall.
Oh,
So
like
that
completely away. So there's no getting
completely
caught
away. So
while
there is
they're
no, exactly. So you don't get stuck, and, you know, the baby can't get stuck or anything. And another thing that you can do if you have a space, like we had the side, the mattress, the crib sidecar to the bed. And there was still a space between the mattresses, so then you can roll up a towel or a baby blanket or something like that and fill in the space so they can't fall in. And then we, like we said, we get rid of all the stuff, all the crazy stuff that's hanging out, and anything obviously that's like sharp or pokey or anything like that. Okay, I could just go on and on and on. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, a couple of things that come to mind for me is don't let your baby sleep there without you. As I've seen that before, where people will put the baby in the bed just for like nap time and then go, you know, and then leave. And then they maybe like put pillows around the baby so the baby won't roll off the bed, and, you know, but
Yeah.
they're not there to watch the baby. So definitely just like, this is when you're with your baby, you know. Um, and breastfeeding plays a huge role in this. And you were saying that SIDS is very, very, very different from safe sleeping. And breastfeeding is a huge protective factor here. So that is really, you know, where it comes in. And I think when society as a whole just says like, don't do it, but they never, which leaves you kind of looking for ways to do it like secretively, which
Well, that's
isn't
how you get into the couch and the
right.
recliner.
And that's so unsafe. So at least, you know, have the knowledge behind you where you can do it safely, because a lot of people end up like when they're pregnant, they say, I'm never going to sleep with my baby. I'm just not going to do it. It's unsafe. I'll never get him out of my bed, blah, blah, blah. And then they have their baby and they realize that that's really the only way they get any solid sleep. And then they go, oh, geez, how do I do this safely? So, you know, we've got great resources for you to figure that out.
Right. And actually, you're talking about SIDS, and the La Leche League talks a little bit about this. And it actually opened my eyes a little bit, too, of why there's so much fear mongering around co-sleep bed sharing. It says that the risk for SIDS or suffocation is far, far, far greater in a household where the parent smokes, uses alcohol or drugs, where the baby is formula fed. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, too. Or in truly chaotic settings where the baby sleeps who knows where or with who knows whom. In an attempt to reach these parents and in certain chaotic situations and protect certain babies, the warnings have been made very clear and very strong and very simple. If this isn't you, then those recommendations aren't for you.
True.
So I thought that was a really, really great way of putting it.
It reminds me of, like, conversations that I have with my kids. Like, sometimes I'll be like, "Pick up your laundry." And one of them will be like, "Well, I didn't leave my laundry there." I'm like, "If it doesn't pertain to you,
Yeah,
then
right,
disregard."
right. If this isn't about you, then proceed
Mhm.
with these recommendations, which are proceed with bed sharing under these circumstances. And they say, like, if you meet the safe sleep 7, then you're good to go. And we'll talk a bit more about that too. But I think we need to take a break for a word
Yes.
from our sponsors.
So we'll pick that up after our break.
Yeah. You'll have to remind me.
Okay.
Today's episode is brought to you by Fairhaven Health. Do you love lactation tea but hate the taste? Often nursing teas can taste earthy, which is a nice way of saying dirt. Fairhaven Health Nursing Time Tea is a caffeine-free, all-natural herbal lactation tea with a light lemon taste that you won't need to choke down. Nursing Time Tea is made with herbs such as fennel seed, goat's rue, and blessed thistle that have been used for centuries to help support a healthy milk supply and soothe an upset tummy. All ingredients are high quality, organic, wildcrafted, and contain no preservatives or additives. Nurture yourself and your milk supply with Nursing Time Tea. It can be made hot or cold, which is awesome when you forget about it. It's a great way to maintain your hydration while supporting your milk supply. Head to fairhavenhealth.com, that's FAIRHAVEN health, and use promo code BADASS for 15% off of your purchase. And today's episode is also brought to you by Kindred Bravely. Their ultimate absorbent reusable nursing pads are up to 8 times more absorbent than the leading washable breast pads and more environmentally friendly than disposable nursing pads. Constructed of 4 ultra-thin layers for comfort and confidence, these washable pads are the ultimate in leak protection. The fast dry top layer wicks moisture away from your skin. 2 absorbent core layers lock in liquid, and the outer anti-slip layer prevents bunching and slipping inside your bra. With a contoured design that molds to your unique body shape, these seamless pads these seamless pads also provide incredible shaping and coverage. So you can confidently wear your choice of nursing bra and shirt. They remind me of swimsuit inserts.
Oh,
The
cool.
like padded, like fabric, like nice kind of solid things
Yeah.
with a non-stick thing. Not an anti-slip thing. I'm sorry. A non-slip thing is what I meant. Layer kind of thing so it doesn't slip around. These reusable nursing pads come in a convenient multi-pack with 1 beige pair and 1 black pair, so you'll always have a set to keep you dry all day or night. Check out the ultra-absorbent reusable nursing pads at kindredbravely.com, and use promo code BFMAMA20 for 20% off of your purchase. BFMAMA20 for 20% off these pads. And these sponsors and their promo codes can be found in our show notes under this episode on badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. Our show notes also include further information about things that we talked about in this episode. And at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, you'll also find breastfeeding resources, all of our other episodes, and information about scheduling your very own one-on-one, online, lactation consultation with Dianne.
It's fun
And very helpful.
and very helpful. Yes.
She's helping all of you, a lot of you.
Yeah.
And this week's shout out goes to 6 Black women who are being inducted into the Women's Hall of Fame
Pretty
that
cool.
have previously been excluded from the Hall of Fame. And this year it's 6 Black women. It is Aretha Franklin, Henrietta Lacks, Toni Morrison, Barbara Hillary, Barbara Rose Jones, Powell and Mary Church Terrell. Now you can the link for more about these amazing women is in our show notes, and you can read about each one of their accomplishments. Some of them you probably already know. And that's all I got.
Fantastic.
All right, what in the world were we talking about? As I have 8 pages of stuff spread in front of me.
We were talking about the Safe Sleep 7, and if you are part of that 7, if you have those 7 safe sleep guidelines in your life and you're already practicing that, then you're good to go to safely co-sleep.
Yeah, let's go over the 7. So it's a non-smoker in or out of your home. If you are going outside of your home and smoking, it still doesn't count.
Mhm.
That will still, smoking still affects your ability to arouse from sleep. If you're a smoker, continue to breastfeed, and do the best you can to smoke outside and wash your hands and stuff like that. But sleep on a separate surface close to your baby. Sober and unimpaired, no medications or alcohol or drugs. Breastfeeding. Oh yeah, and I want to talk a little bit more about breastfeeding too. Healthy and full term baby on their back, lightly dressed, no swaddles, and you are both on a safe surface, firm mattress with no water beds, no heavy blankets, no pillows, no toys, no cords, no strings, and no gaps. That is the La Leche League Safe Sleep 7. James McKenna goes into talking about, if you have super long hair, tie it up. There shouldn't be any, if your baby's less than 1 year, there shouldn't be any other siblings in the bed. What I did, I actually did have other siblings in the bed, but I placed myself between them. I had myself turned towards Exley in the breastfeeding cuddle curl, which I can talk about too. And then I had Jack at my back.
Should be no pets too.
No pets. Definitely no pets. And anybody that feels like they're unsure about bed sharing, if there's another thing, is that your partner must agree.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just do it, and then, the partner's not agree. This is a family decision. So everyone should be aware of the baby in the bed. Don't just throw a sleeping baby next to another sleeping person that doesn't know that it's there. I always felt more comfortable with my tiny baby putting myself in between my husband and my baby. However, like in cultures like Japan, they say sleep like a river, where they have the adults on the outside and the baby in the middle.
Oh.
So this is all cultural too. We need to understand that too. But the breastfeeding cuddle curl, I love it. It's this is where you're going to want to learn the sideline sleeping, the sideline breastfeeding, laying down to breastfeed, getting comfortable with that. You can have a pillow under your head, but this is what breastfeeding does on your side. It brings your arm up under your head. It brings your knees in. So you literally, people are like, I'm going to roll on my baby. You can't. You literally cannot, even if you tried. Some people will just breastfeed from, I could never figure out how to switch boobs and not switch sides of my body. Some people will just have the baby latch to the bottom boob and they'll just be like, okay, now I'm going to twist my body a little bit and then feed with the top boob. I couldn't figure that out. I had to I had to switch sides. I did, like my husband says, bake the other side.
Oh my God, that's funny.
And so this is what's called the breastfeeding cuddle curl. And this is the behavior that actually James McKenna at Notre Dame has studied for decades. And the reason why he recommends breastfeeding and babies that are bottle fed, even if there's breast milk in the bottle, your baby is not as oriented towards your breasts. And the behavior changes. The babies actually tend to move up towards your face and towards the pillow. A breastfed baby who's more oriented towards the breast stays at the breast. Just stays right there in that spot, which is why these recommendations are made this way, because they watch the different body behaviors.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So the other thing that I like to say about this is somebody came on the Badass Breastfeeder page and was like giving me details about her bed, her like setup and all that stuff, and the ages of her babies and things. And so I was kind of like offering some advice. But then I said, you know what? You are a very smart and capable parent. You can be confident in your assessment, knowing these guidelines, in assessing the safety of your environment. And she was concerned because her toddler, like, here's the other thing. If you're sleeping with a toddler, everybody who sleeps with a toddler knows this. They are sleeping every which way.
Ugh.
They are like helicopters. They're just like the helicopter, the like blades of a helicopter going all night. But the thing is that once they're able to do that, they're not really at risk anymore of like getting stuck and like stuff like that, because they're older, they move around a lot. They can, if they had like a blanket come over their head, they would move it.
Right.
They can respond more like we can. But that's what I think people worry, that they're not able to assess the safety. And I think that sometimes these guidelines make it so that we feel like we're not like capable of deciding what is safe for us or not. But we are totally capable parents that can assess the safety of our homes and our beds. And one last thing, I just want to say real quick. I this was something that I really enjoyed about this, about James McKenna's thing too, is he said, he says, again, with the SIDS conversation, babies die of SIDS very rarely, but it happens in totally risk-free cribs and risk-free adult beds. And if he says, before you choose to bring your baby into your bed, sit down with your partner and have a conversation. Do you truly understand the safety, that this is a safe situation? And that if your baby died of SIDS, would you blame yourself? Would you feel responsible for it? Or do you understand that that's something that just happens? It's unexplained and it happens. And it's not related to this risk-free sleep environment. And I thought that was really interesting to think about that. Like, do you truly understand that this is risk-free, or if something happened, would you blame yourself?
Right.
And make that decision for your family.
I think these are great guidelines and really spell it out really, really well. And I love how he goes all the way back to, was it a healthy pregnancy, no smoking during pregnancy, and a full-term healthy baby. That's a really important point.
Yeah, and he says, and I've had this conversation before. I think it's the La Leche League Safe Sleep 7. They're like, we don't roll on our babies any more than we roll off the side of the bed or roll onto a cat that's in the bed.
Right.
We don't do that.
I've had,
so you can trust I'm sorry.
no, it's okay.
We said that, there was that quote from our last bed sharing episode by James McKenna that was like, people are made to believe that their bodies are these lethal weapons. And that's not true.
I have had mothers say to me, well, I'm a really heavy sleeper, so I'm just afraid that I'm not going to wake up. But when you have your baby, and you're breastfeeding this baby, you become very, very in tune with that baby, and you will wake up. Like, your baby's there.
Yeah, you do know your baby's there. And you will wake up. Although I will say, if somebody doesn't feel comfortable with it, then don't do it. Create a safe environment create an environment that is going to be comfortable for you to go to sleep in. The thing that happened with me, I was so afraid to bring my baby into my bed. But the more that I learned about it, the more I got really kind of into looking into this stuff and reading about this stuff. I started to feel like it wasn't a risk. I truly felt like I wasn't placing my baby in danger. And so going to sleep was comfortable for me. If you still have these doubts, if it's uncomfortable for you, then don't do it. Check out that link in the show notes of all the different photos. It's like a photo gallery of all the setups. Look at that and see if there's something that looks like it might be more comfortable for you.
Mm.
Because there's ways to sleep with your baby close and to provide that breastfeeding through the night and that, that protective factor, that is, that can be comfortable for you.
And if you're listening and you're pregnant, it's hard to imagine how much of an impact this is gonna make on your life when you have your baby.
Totally.
And especially when, if you're somebody who needs to go back to work and sleep becomes really, really, I mean, it's already really important, but if you're having to function at a job during the day and the only way you get a good few hours of sleep is to have your baby with you, then this is gonna be really crucial to have these guidelines.
Yeah, and the other thing is that people say like, "Well, I don't co-sleep and I'm not going to co-sleep and I'm not going to do this." But like 75% of people do end up doing it. And the other thing that they say that I really like, the La Leche League says, is like it's like putting on your seatbelt. You don't expect that you're gonna crash. You just put your seatbelt on just in case.
Mhm.
Create a safe sleep environment where you're next to your baby, where you can get some sleep just in case, you want to use that. You might think like, no, 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 I don't feel comfortable with it. I'm not going to do it. But create the space anyway that could be comfortable for you, just in case you need it.
It's great advice.
In case you do end up in that situation, because so many of us say we're not going to do it, but we do. We end up doing it because it's just easier.
And they do it like they're like closet co-sleepers, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Everybody's too afraid to say that it's what they did.
Yeah, because everyone is out there saying that you're gonna, that it's like that it's just the worst thing ever.
Yeah. So thank you so much for the info. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. And on all of these links were the ones that I was talking today mostly about. So you can go right on James McKenna. Everything I was saying is on, well, it's in the link, but there's safe co-sleeping guidelines. He runs through it. And then the Safe Sleep 7 from the Leche League is awesome. And then there's a couple other links there too.
Yeah,
And
that's
yeah.
really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.